The David Ayer cut. All right, let's get into this for a little bit. So last week's episode, we discussed the Snyder cut, of which has been very top of mind for me in particular. I'm writing a book titled Release the Snyder Cut. It gets into the fight from DC fans and Snyder fans in particular to get Zack Snyder's version of Justice League released to HBO Max. In the wake of this, HBO is now getting inundated with requests from DC fans and particular David Ayer fans who want to see his version of Suicide Squad. Now, Suicide Squad was also interfered with by Warner Brothers, and some of it had to do with changes that they made to Justice League that directly affected the story that he wanted to tell. Some of it was in relation to the amazing trailer that everybody points at and says, that was an incredible trailer. They turned his footage over to the company that cut that trailer and said, cut a better version of the feature film, which is just ridiculous. And so now Release the Ayer cut is starting to trend, and David Ayer himself is promoting it by weighing in often by saying there's a lot more of the Joker, the Jared Leto Joker stuff, and he had a longer relationship with Harley. There are other big characters that should have been more prominently featured. The ending had to do with Steppenwolf and the Parademons, which became prevalent in Justice League and not Enchantress. And so I'll turn it over to you guys and ask, with the advent of HBO Max, should HBO Max become this platform for lost director's cuts that won't be able to play in theaters, but could very easily go to a cable streaming service and make directors and fans happy? Or is this a dangerous precedent, Pandora's box, that we are opening up and rewarding toxic fandoms who complain online that they didn't get to see their cut?
I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think in a case like the Snyder cut or what happened with Suicide Squad, I think those directors deserve to have their visions seen, because they filmed one movie and another movie came out. In the same way that, like, I'm grateful for the director's cut of Blade Runner, like Ridley Scott's version, because the studio screwed with it and changed the film that we wanted to make. Like, you sent out a very interesting tweet last week, which is basically, I can't remember the exact wording, but basically the idea was like, look, if another version of a movie you don't care about comes out, what do you care? Like, it's not going to harm you. Don't watch it. Like, whatever. Like, turn a blind eye to it. But there are people that care about it. Granted, do I personally think that every single movie that you don't like deserves like an X, give me the X cut? No, I don't. Sometimes people just make bad movies. It happens. But I do think that there are some very specific cases, like the Snyder cut, deserves to exist. I think David Ayer's Suicide Squad deserves to exist. And to be honest, like, it kind of feels like J.J. Abrams basically made the Rise of Skywalker that he wanted to make. So I don't really want to see this new uprising of give me the Abrams cut of Episode 9, because I think we got it. I think in some cases it's just you just don't like the movie that the director made. And I think they're apples and oranges, and you have to judge each one independently. I think it's totally fine. And the reason I'm phrasing it this way, and we talked about this briefly before we started recording, is I kind of felt like I was getting ripped apart in the comments section of the YouTube video last week. Because I think my comments about maybe playing devil's advocate or my hesitation about the Snyder cut were misinterpreted. I'm very much a supporter of the Snyder cut and of directors getting to not have their vision, their original film, messed with in post by studios. But we can't forget the fact that sometimes directors just make bad movies. Sure. And sometimes you're just not going to like a movie. There is no Spielberg cut of Indiana Jones 4. We got it and it sucks. There isn't a streaming service that's going to fix that movie. But if there is a case where it can, sure. I just think we need to make sure that we don't use that hashtag as an umbrella to fix and get another shot at every movie we don't like.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I agree with you, but I also think that like Jake was saying, it's case to case. There's every movie has its own story. I do believe, in my opinion, that David Ayer deserves to release his cut. I actually always felt really bad that his vision wasn't shown, and it's so weird to me because I did that junket for Suicide Squad, and I just didn't know any of the drama.
Did he do it? Did David do the junket?
Oh yeah.
What was his demeanor? What was his
He was great. I mean, like if you go to YouTube, just type in Suicide Squad, Kevin McCarthy. I mean, like you'll see them. But like Jared Leto was amazing. Will Smith was amazing. Margot Robbie was amazing. Like, that was an amazing.
Do you think he's torn about it though? Because like the movie didn't it make $1 billion?
It made a lot of money, but I also feel like now looking back, I want to go back and watch my David Ayer interview now because I want to see if I can get a sense of in the way he talks of whether or not he seems unhappy with his product. I mean, Sean, you were there. Did you get a sense that day that he was unhappy with his finished movie?
No, and this is why I think that this stands apart from what happened with Snyder is that David Ayer came out and backed that cut. He put his name on it.
Wow.
He promoted it. And with Zack, he never did. Zack has claimed he's never even seen theatrical, and would refuse to acknowledge. But David Ayer played the game enough. To me, it's a compromise of vision, but he still agreed to put the cut out there and promote it. So
now, David Ayer at that point, I would argue, had not made a film of that magnitude. And I think, and again, I'm not defending David Ayer in regards to promoting his film, but I think in the Ayer cut setting, I believe that if he has a finished version without that horrendous Enchantress dancing garbage that was at the end of that film,
terrible.
If he has his own cut of that, why? I mean, and it sounds like he said it's easy to complete. We'll put it on HBO Max. It's a Warner Brothers property. It makes perfect sense. Now, the slippery slope starts when you have movies that didn't have public problems or problems that we knew about that are now wanting to change, like Rise of Skywalker, like Jake said. I mean, we know there was problems in that movie, but just general problems. There was a film before it that was very divisive. Carrie Fisher was not able to shoot that movie. So, there's those things are understandable that fed into what that movie became. I don't believe Abrams would ever even try to acknowledge a different cut of the film. It's his movie. He made it. In Snyder's particular situation, that is just obvious. I mean, they brought another filmmaker in. It's not his style. Let him release the movie he wanted to make. He's been building a trilogy since Man of Steel, BVS. Let him finish it. Let's see his version of the movie.
Sure.
Ayer, I would argue, is the same thing. Ayer, I saw someone tweet this today, actually. I think it was Rob Liefeld, who said, when I watched Suicide Squad, it didn't look like or feel like a David Ayer movie.
100%.
It's the same reason why I think Aladdin, directed by Guy Ritchie, does not feel like a Guy Ritchie movie. It feels like a studio film that Guy Ritchie just happened to direct.
Yes.
Like Kevin Smith doing Cop Out.
Right. And so when you're watching something like Suicide Squad, you can actually see the grittiness and the detail that Ayer was putting into it. Shot 35mm film. It looks incredibly gorgeous. But then you have them redo that stupid Enchantress ending, which was... I still, to this day, don't understand how they didn't come up with a storyline to save Batman. Like, that would have been the coolest plot ever. I can't remember, was it Jake or somebody? We were having this discussion that the plot of Suicide Squad could have easily been the Suicide Squad saving Batman in that tower. Why were they saving Viola Davis? I mean, that was like, what a ridiculously weird plot development that movie was. But at the same time, I liked Leto's Joker. And I know people were against it, but I think that Leto put a lot of work into it that we have not seen. Could you imagine if Leto's performance is brilliant in Ayer's cut? I mean, imagine what we haven't seen. I mean, the trailers alone, and I know trailers can be misleading, but I think that Ayer deserves his cut. Now, that slippery slope is hard because you start manipulating things based on fandom. Sean, this is the question I'll ask you. I was reading today about Snyder Cut, and this is going to be a different realized version of what Snyder was going to do. So this wouldn't have been the Justice League he would have put out 2 years ago. So it's not the cut. We're not getting Snyder's cut of Justice League formally. Mm-hmm. We are getting a new version of what Justice League would be through his eyes, or what he tried to do. So I guess my point there, and I saw someone tweet about this, at what point does that then become fan service? Where if is Snyder manipulating his work based on what's happened with the events in the 2 years? How do you avoid that? And then at the same time, I don't know. So is the Snyder cut really going to be Snyder's cut of Justice League, or is it going to be a new realized? You know what I mean?
Well, and for this reason alone too, he'll be a different person. He's a different person 3 years later. Who is telling a different story that's more relevant to who he is now and what time we're in now.
But he still has old footage to play with, though.
Well, yeah,
ton
that's
of
the thing.
old footage.
He can't change it drastically because he's not going to reshoot. You're not going to be able to reshoot that much.
I heard there's no reshoots. I heard is that true?
These are conflicting reports. I've heard that they are. I've heard one story say that the cast that's coming back is only going to be able to provide their voice for to get laid over CGI animatronics to fill in scenes that aren't finished.
Okay.
Then I've heard as recently as today, AT&T and HBO saying that they're willing to they're giving him more than $30 million to beef it up to become a larger version of what he like, almost not a Game of Thrones type thing, but a longer series, which would allow him to explore other characters
with all of them
and beef it up. Well, that's what I don't know. I'm not quite sure. So then Zack tweeted a picture of Harry Lennox, who Harry Lennox was in Man of Steel and BVS. He was a general, Swanwick, and he's going to become Martian Manhunter. Snyder has made that clear. He put a Harry Lennox picture and just said, like, Harry's so awesome. And I mean, everyone sort of glommed onto that tweet and was like, oh my God, they're working together. He's reshooting stuff with him now, kind of thing. But you'd have to get Ezra Miller back. I think Ray Fisher would come back, but you're talking heavy CGI for a character like Cyborg. I don't know about Affleck.
And also, Affleck would have to get jacked. Remember how jacked he was as Batman?
Yes.
Like, he would have to go through that whole process again.
You
Sean,
can do
is
that
it
with
weird
the
that-
suit, though. A little bit.
That's true.
Do it with the suit a little. Look at Shazam.
Is it weird that Gal Gadot hasn't said anything about the news?
Yeah, it's not normal. It's not. It is a little bit strange that as of right now, she's one of the few. Ezra hasn't said anything either, but Ezra Miller's in a weird PR spot right now, based on that bad video that came out that showed him in an questionable in a questionable situation. He's been relatively silent, but Gal, I don't know why, because
She did tweet the Snyder Cut hashtag in November.
She did, very much so, and she's still in the DC, playbook. Like, she's got Wonder Woman 1984 coming out, so I'm curious about that.
Sean, let me ask you this. So Jake and I interviewed Henry Cavill for The Witcher.
Yeah.
At that point, did Cavill know this was going to happen?
Yes. Yes.
So you think he was completely BSing us?
Yes, 100%. Because the Hollywood Reporter story said that Toby Emmerich of Warner Brothers contacted Zack the day after the November 17th trending event and said, I can't ignore this anymore. Like, this drumbeat's too loud and we have to come to the table and figure out how to do something. And you guys got Henry for Witcher in February? January or February?
December.
Oh, December?
December.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sure that Henry had heard from Zack by that point and said, be ready, we're going to do something. So.
But his answer was so, and again, I understand that, it's funny. I even said in the interview to Henry, I said, this question's coming. Like, he starts laughing. Like, I'm sure he knew, but I guess my point would be, I mean, he's blatantly lying then, because I feel like that's crazy.
Ewan McGregor did that for years when people, Ewan McGregor admitted to knowing about the Obi-Wan series for forever and basically said, like, he copped out. He said, like, yeah, I've been, if you've interviewed me in the past few years and asked me about the Obi-Wan series and I have feigned like ignorance, I've straight up been lying to you.
So if you're Cavill, then why not just simply say, I support the movement. I'm excited about the fans rising up. I don't know if the cut will ever happen. Hopefully it will.
Okay, let me put it in this context.
People were against him.
If you had like drama going on like at your Fox station with like on-air people, whatever, someone leaving, someone going, whatever the case may be, and like someone came up to you on the street and was asking you about that, wouldn't you just straight up be like, yeah, I don't really know. I don't know anything about it. You have to keep in mind, like, at the end of the day, like, Cavill doesn't know us. It's like he's not lying to Kevin McCarthy. He's basically just not giving out information he shouldn't be giving out. In the same way that if people ask me about stuff at work, I sort of just go like, yeah, I don't really know. I don't know.
But he was pretty specific about saying that he didn't know anything about it.
A little bit, yeah. But Kevin, he also said to you he was more interested in telling the story where they left it after Man of Steel.
Yes.
So maybe he's heard something from HBO Max that said, hey, if this works, why don't you keep telling Superman stories over here, because these streaming services are going to need content.
We have to get a Man of Steel too.
Yeah, exactly. But it might not have to. It might not have to go to theaters. It might be able to go to HBO Max
If
in
Snyder,
a Netflix original type thing.
So at this point, Sean, I know we're moving on, but at this point, we don't know if Snyder's Justice League is going to be a movie or a series.
Correct.
It sounded like the Hollywood Reporter article said that one of the things that the Warner Brothers executives that they were excited about was this idea of 40-minute episodes and each one leading off on a cliffhanger so that you were excited for the next. And they would do maybe one per week. And otherwise, it would have to be a 4-hour movie. And honestly, I think I would rather the episodes than than sit down for a 4-hour movie.
I'd watch a 4-hour movie because you're going to watch 4 episodes back to back anyways.
Not if they only put them out one per week. I have now subscribed to the idea that I am moving away from the Netflix model, and I'm watching Defending Jacob right now. Like, I like the 1 episode per week model. Like, I like the Last Dance and the leaving off on the cliffhanger and waiting for, like, I miss that. And I'm excited for that.
This becomes interesting because based on what Jake is saying, this becomes a business or a story decision. And I think from a business standpoint, you do it week to week to create momentum. And I think
there could be a good story told over 6 chapters.
Well, his cut was 214 minutes, which is 3 hours and 30-something minutes. And that's before he goes back to do reshoots. I think if he goes back and takes a look at what he has and what he's able to film in the next year, that will be the creative decision that will tell him how is the best way to put it forward. And he's going to make that decision.
What do you want, Sean?
I want a series. I would like a series because I think a series would allow him time to breathe with these characters that he's thought about for a long time, and he would get more character development. There's a lot of characters who we haven't even met. Like, there's Flash-related characters. There's Cyborg-related characters. There's a lot of side parts that haven't even been part of the thing, and I don't want him to have to sacrifice those.
Well, we get the R. I hope he goes R-rated. I mean, like, I would imagine he will, because I'll never forget talking to Zach for BVS, and I remember they gave me a double slot that day, and I was so excited because I'd just seen BVS the night before. And one of the things he talked about very giddily, because you know how he's like a geek, he's like the greatest, like, fun guy to talk to about filmmaking, and I'll never forget him lighting up like a light bulb when he could do the warehouse scene with blood spraying out of people. And I'm like, this is the movie this guy wanted to make. Obviously he's constrained to a PG-13, but at that point I feel like his Justice League could be R-rated. All he has to do is mess with some digital blood. I mean, there's something to be said about watching a Batman fight with real blood in it. Like, there's something about the groundedness of it, which, you know, I love Nolan's Dark Knight, but that movie is PG-13 and doesn't have a lot of blood, so it doesn't feel as brutal as BVS at times in regards to the fighting. But